As we bring in Doug Flynn from Flynn Zito Capital Management. Hello, Doug. What about it? You know, we've talked about bailouts for farmers. This would be something else during the shutdown. A lot of them are struggling. We've had some of them on the show.
True.
What's needed here?
It comes from the trade disruptions, but also comes with some harvest disruptions. We had bumper crops in certain like soybeans and whatnot, and then China's changing what it's doing. So, you know, the farmers do need that. So they're opening up these offices so the farmers can get their checks and actually cash them if they need to, and keep things going and get their planning going for next year. And it is true, you know, this is something that was supposed to come out a couple weeks ago, but with the shutdown, it was put off until the shutdown is over, but that isn't happening soon, so they got to do something. And these are emergency measures that they can do, apparently, at the government. They're doing the same thing with releasing the CPI report on Friday. We're not supposed to get those reports typically in a shutdown, but they called back those BLS workers to issue that because it's a really important one that's going to come out. That one's going to impact Social Security increases for next year. So we need that data. And so it shows, you know, there are some things the government can do even in a shutdown if it's that important.
You know, Rollins was saying to Blake that there'd be a big announcement today about it, which we haven't seen yet. But here's more of what she said in that interview last night.
We can rebuild our beef herd, which is at its lowest in 75 years, which is why the prices are so high, right? Supply demand.
Up 26% in the last 2 years, I think like 17% in the last year.
That's exactly right, because the demand is moving up as people want more protein, and the supply is moving down. So how we work on that, we've got a big announcement coming tomorrow.
Coming tomorrow.
Coming tomorrow.
You can make it here if you want.
I would love to, but I may be at the White House doing it. But that's the first time I've said that.
Okay.
But there is a really big announcement coming tomorrow on what we're going to do to restore and revitalize our beef herd in America, which ultimately will bring the prices down.
Kind of interesting. The only thing we know about at the White House is the NATO Secretary General in a few minutes. So we'll see what happens on this front. But she brings up other points there about demand, you know, kind of people's changing diets and all of this. What would you say economically about the future for some of these farmers?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about it is that people, I don't even think about it often, about how much in advance you have to plan to have that piece of broccoli or whatever it is show up at the supermarket. And so all of this gets into the lead time and what has to happen to anticipate all that and plan for it. And so without that continuous flow or the disruption that they've had, things are getting out of whack. And so you're going to have further problems down the road if they don't attack it. And so, you know, you're back to the same issues of that, you know, Congress is shut down. They can't do a lot. So they're trying to get these things through here to make it as smooth as possible for the farmers until all this other stuff settles down. But, you know, I just think about Congress for a moment. They do get paid during the shutdown.
Yes.
And to me, you know, what I think they should do is not get paid. But the difference is, unlike the federal workers, we should not give them retro pay. Meaning, if they don't work for a month, you know, why are they getting paid for a month? Everyone else should get paid, but the Congress should not get paid. And maybe we wouldn't have such long shutdowns if that's actually the case. But I don't anticipate that's going to happen, much like I don't anticipate, you know, any kind of trading rules are going to happen for Congress either. So
right, that's been another issue we've talked about on the show, the stock trading. But no, you're probably right. It wouldn't even be maybe. It would. We wouldn't have the long shutdowns. I think that's probably fair to say if that was the rule that was in place. One other thing before you go here on financial news or the economy today, you and I were talking about OpenAI, the company OpenAI, on yesterday's show a little bit, and you know, Axios had a longer article today about how it's kind of a metamorphosis from this company. We talked about the web browser that was launching, but from kind of a chatbot or a chat app company to just a big tech giant. It's almost like Google in the early days when it took over, when, you know, nobody saw it coming and then it ruled the world kind of thing. Is that happening again?
I think it is happening. You know, you think about it started with the chatbot. It moved to the web browser that we talked about yesterday, Atlas. They also have something called Sora, which is a social media app where they can you can share 10-second AI videos. They opened up commerce to compete with Amazon. They partnered with Walmart, and they're doing that. Then they're also moving into hardware. They hired a whole bunch of former Apple people to create some hardware. We're talking about the glasses and displays, and they're moving fast. And after that, you know, there's healthcare, there's cloud. And so privately recently, it's a private company, it's not publicly traded. The recent valuation came out based on the recent sales of some of the shares of the insiders, that it's worth $500 billion right now as a company, and it's private. That would make it a top 15 company in the US. There's only 9 companies worth $1 trillion. this is eventually going to go public. But if they start doing all this and being major competitors, they also have, by the way, a direct app store that bypasses Apple and Google. So they're trying to get into everything. And before you know it, this could be a $1 trillion company that comes out public at some point. And so you do, all these competitors have to be on the lookout for this company coming behind them, and then perhaps other companies behind it. So that's what competition does.
Right. Competition's funny that way. 25 years ago, like we were talking about, people say, oh, Google, forget it. Yahoo's the dominant company. And, not so much. So we'll see how this all plays out. And what's happening now, it's playing out really fast. But Doug, thank you. Doug Flynn with us as usual.